Earlier today, I did a segment talking about the conservative organizations refusing to abide by Joe Biden's illegal vaccine mandate. The mandate, of course, is that if you have 100 employees, you must require them to be vaccinated or to get tested weekly. Now, many on the left are saying it's not a vaccine mandate because you can just get tested. Right. It's coercive pressure on the business and the individual. What working class person has time to take out of their week to go get tested every week? And what business has the capacity to track 100 plus employees' vaccination tests every single week? They're going to have to hire people for this. Oh, it's much easier, I suppose. Just get vaccinated one time and we're all good and done. Yes, it's a vaccine mandate, and many people are saying no. Well, it's not just conservative organizations. I also mentioned that there are around 21 Republican governors threatening to sue. It's also the RNC threatening to sue, and a lot of other groups are seriously pissed off, including unions who are saying this should be up to us to negotiate. Joe Biden's stealing leverage from these unions, so naturally a lot of people are pissed off. But of course, Joe Biden's response, veiled threats, or I guess direct threats, saying that he will use the power of the presidency to get these governors out of the way, which is not how this country is supposed to work. But surprise, surprise, the establishment leftist activists, the overt authoritarians, are cheering for rule by decree. Joe Biden has now issued another statement. When asked, how do you respond to these governors who are saying that they're going to be filing suit? He said, have at it, because we're sick of it. Joe Biden said in his speech last night, our patience is running thin. Something's not adding up. It's not adding up. Joe Biden's coming out mandating vaccines. We have a new report from Politico talking about a reduction in the efficacy of these vaccines to keep the elderly out of hospitals. We've seen similar data coming out of Israel. So how are we supposed to effectively manage this when you have anti-science or scientismists, people who don't actually believe in science? They just say, if the report comes out, we follow it no matter what, with no questioning of it. So Joe Biden comes out and says, the science is settled. We're going to go do mandates. And I'm like, Politico just reported efficacy is down. Now, I don't know what you should do. I don't know what the country should do, but I can tell you authoritarianism ain't going to work. Threatening people, forcing them to get vaccinated only sows more distrust. And now more people are coming out saying, well, now I won't get vaccinated. Look at the Daily Wire. Ben Shapiro, it's basically his organization along with some other co-founders. They are very pro-vaccine. Ben Shapiro tweets about how the vaccine's been working for some time, regardless of the now new information on vaccine efficacy. And he is still saying we do not support these mandates. Because now you have people who probably would have listened to Ben Shapiro outright saying, you know what, because of this, no, I won't do it. Just to say, screw you and your authoritarianism. I mean, that's how people work. You tell someone not to do something and they'll be like, well, now I'm going to do it. You tell someone to go do something, they'll say, screw you, you can't make me. No, you need to be honest with people, show them the data, question the science as you're supposed to, and then tell them, take the information you've learned, go and talk to a trusted medical professional, figure out what's right for you. That's not where we're at. We're in the era of censorship and government authoritarianism, and all they do is sow more and more distrust. Let's take a look at some of what Biden said, some of what you may have seen, but I want to take a look at the latest developments on how many Republicans are threatening to sue and the current data on what it means for vaccines and potential treatments. And I got to say, it's bad news across the board, but that's the reality that's being reported on. And I don't think Joe Biden being a despot is going to make anything good. Now, before we get started, head over to timcast.com, become a member to get access to exclusive members-only content like segments from the Timcast IRL podcast just for members that we record after the show. You'll also be supporting our journalism, and you'll get an ad-free experience. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this video right now with your friends. If everybody who watched shared this video, we'd be bigger than CNN overnight. And if you think that's something that should be happening, I need your help to do it. Let's take a look at this first story. And many of you may be familiar with this context, so I'll just go quickly through it from Yahoo News. Quote, get them out of the way. Biden says bullying governors must quit fighting pandemic restrictions. Bullying, he says. Quote, local school officials are trying to keep children safe in a pandemic while the governor picks a fight with them and even threatens their salaries or their job. Talk about bullying in schools, Biden said at the state dining room on Thursday. He said that those whose pay is threatened, I promise you, I will have your back. If these governors won't help us beat this pandemic, I'll use my power as president to get them out of the way. Adding that the federal government has already begun taking legal action against states undermining local authorities. While Biden did not name Florida Governor Ron DeSantis directly, the president has sparred repeatedly with him in recent months. The president unveiled a 6-pronged strategy designed to limit infection rates as children return to the classroom this fall and businesses itch to resume normal operations. There's a lot we need to go through. So I'll give you the quick bullet points and then we'll break things down because I don't want to waste time. From Politico, new CDC studies show waning vaccine effectiveness against hospitalization in elderly. 2 of the analyses suggest that as the Delta variant spread this summer, the shots became less effective at keeping people 75 and older out of the hospital. Now, I'm not a doctor. I can't tell you ultimately what this means. A doctor may advise you that reduced efficacy does not mean zero efficacy. Go talk to someone you know and trust. But I will point out that the data we're getting out of Israel and other places that show similar issues with efficacy are cause for worry. And I don't think Joe Biden coming out and mandating something that people are already worried about is going to make the problem better. Here we have GOP governors threaten to fight Biden's vaccine mandate. FDA weighs in on vaccines for kids and other COVID updates. The RNC says it plans to sue Biden administration over federal vaccination mandate. And what was the response from Joe Biden? From timcast.com. President Biden dared Republican governors to sue his administration Friday over his recently announced vaccine mandate, saying he was disappointed that some politicians have been cavalier with the health of children. You know, I won't fall for this. Oh, won't someone think of the children? I am thinking of the children and their futures and their rights. And I'm also thinking about the science, which changes, which it's supposed to. I'm thinking about the data, which we should question and analyze. That's what I've been doing. Why, there's many people who come out saying you can't question the science and you deny science. All right, I'll show you one for. We have a ton of studies that say ivermectin has shown positive results in reducing the viral replication of COVID. And we have many studies saying inconclusive or nothing changed, in which case I question all of it. Whether it's someone who likes these alternative therapies or someone who doesn't, I will question all of it. And thus, the FDA has not issued an emergency use authorization or approval for ivermectin. That's questioning the science, regardless of what you want to believe or want to think is right, even if you oppose vaccine mandates. I question it. Now, of course, then it requires leadership to make decisions on how to move forward. And guess what? Joe Biden, you ain't a doctor. Fauci, you've been wrong too much. That's why I keep saying y'all need to get away from the culture war when it comes to take care of your health. A lot of people are talking about positive results in certain countries for certain treatments. Fantastic. Go to your doctor, ask them about these stories. I'm not the specialist, nor is Joe Biden, nor is Anthony Fauci. Oh, of course, people on the left will say, but Fauci is the head of infectious disease, blah, blah, blah. Yo, he's a bureaucrat in government, not a practicing doctor who knows your medical history. Don't take advice from him or anybody else for that matter. Be it Joe Rogan, a comedian on a podcast, or Tim Pool, a commentator and journalist. I'm not here to tell you what to do with your health. That's up to you. I am here to challenge politically the rights of individuals and the violations from the federal government. Some governors are calling your vaccine requirements an overreach and are threatening to challenge it in the court, said one reporter. Have at it, said the president. I am so disappointed that particularly some Republican governors have been so cavalier with the health of these kids, so cavalier with the health of these communities. I will not be emotionally bullied, Joe Biden, when you say, oh, the children. Here comes the RNC. Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel says Biden's executive orders are unconstitutional. And I'm not a constitutional lawyer or scholar, but I would go ahead and say I believe she's correct. We have a legislative branch. They're the ones who pass laws and regulations, not the president. The executive branch can issue executive orders on how certain things are funded under emergencies and how agents of the executive branch and law enforcement behave and what they actually enforce, which creates some interesting precedent on walls and DACA, immigration, but not on putting in mandates and requirements for private businesses. NBC News reports. The Republican National Committee said Thursday that it plans to sue the Biden administration after the president issued 2 sweeping executive orders. RNC chairwoman Ronna McDaniel said the mandate was unconstitutional. Quote, Joe Biden told Americans when he was elected that he would not impose vaccine mandates. He lied. Now, small businesses, workers, and families across the country will pay the price, she said. Like many Americans, I am pro-vaccine and anti-mandate. I completely agree with that. She said many small businesses and workers do not have the money or legal resources to fight Biden's unconstitutional actions and authoritarian decrees. But when his decree goes into effect, the RNC will sue the administration to protect Americans and their liberties. They say Biden, who has been under pressure to act decisively as the spread of the Delta variant of the coronavirus has caused COVID cases to rise in recent weeks, announced in a speech Thursday, this we all know, all of these mandates. Biden said in December that he would not favor a vaccine mandate. But in recent months, as vaccination numbers stalled, he has encouraged vaccination requirements in schools, workplaces, and college campuses. In his speech, he sharply criticized the tens of millions of eligible people who remain unvaccinated. Let's break down the lies and the ignorance. Who remains unvaccinated? There's a lot of data. A lot of the data, because we're talking about fully vaccinated. The mandate is full vaccination, meaning 2 shots right now. That's what full vaccination means. Most people don't have, or actually, I do think most people, just over 50%, are fully vaccinated. But that means 49 or so percent are not fully vaccinated. Many of them have no shots. A decent amount have at least 1 shot. Now, as for the people who have received 1 shot and not followed through with the second shot, why would that be? In many instances, it's because of the advice of their own doctors. These stories have been all over the news. You need only pay attention. It was reported in the New York Times, I'm pretty sure, that many people got the first shot, had an adverse event, talked to their doctor, and the doctor said, we don't recommend you follow up. That adds to the numbers. It's creating a circumstance in which there will never be enough fully vaccinated people because some people just can't get it. And as for those who don't have any shots, there are people who have, epilepsy, multiple sclerosis, history of anaphylaxis, or Guillain-Barré syndrome. I'm pronouncing that wrong. I always do. Everyone says you pronounce it a different way. I digress. There are a lot of people who just can't get it. There's also pregnant women. And there's also younger people who have certain questions and concerns about long-term effects. This is not an issue of tens of millions of people just saying, F you, Biden. No. In fact, maybe that would be a good thing. People just defying the government and speaking up and speaking out as they would be allowed to. It actually is people who go to their doctors and get sound medical advice. That's it. And Joe Biden doesn't understand that, or he does and doesn't care. And this is an opportunity to create more and more restrictions and mandates. So what do? You force a business to require a mandate, and then what? Fire all of their employees with with medical issues? In New York City, we are days away, 3 days, from every single business in the city firing employees with medical issues barred from getting the vaccine. I personally know people who can't get the vaccine, whose doctors say, I will not advise you, I will not recommend it, I will not prescribe it. There are people who may be cancer survivors. There are people who might have issues with their nervous system. And their doctor says no. Who is Biden to overrule someone's doctor? Sorry, I'm not playing that game. NBC goes on to say Republican lawmakers, many of whom have resisted mask mandates and vaccinations, swiftly criticized the president. Arizona Governor Doug Ducey, for instance, signaled legal action. Well, here we go from USA Today. A number of conservative governors across the U.S. are threatening to fight President Joe Biden's newly announced vaccine mandate plan, which will require businesses with more than 100 employees to require inoculation or weekly testing. The move predictably was both applauded and condemned by Americans, political leaders and union heads, and political leaders and union heads. It will be enacted through a forthcoming rule from the Occupational Safety and Health Administration that carries penalties up to $14,000 per violation, an administration official said. Here's what I want you to understand. When people like Kyle Kalinske or, whoever else say, it's not a vaccine mandate because you could just get tested weekly. Let's say you're an employee at a company and you got a kid and you're working your job full time and you have very little time to pick them up, drop them off at school, go to work. Your significant other is working. And now they want you to take a day out of the week to go get tested. Okay, maybe you can, maybe you can't. Imagine you're the employer. $14,000 per violation. So the employee shows up one day and says, look, I had to pick up my kids. I had no time. It's fine, isn't it? I had the test last week. And the employer says, I will be fined $14,000 if you do not have the test or proof of vaccination. Sorry, bye-bye, you can't come in. Every week would be a $14,000 violation for that company. This is coercion. Oh, it's so much easier. Hey, get the vaccine one time and you're good to go. And now you don't got to worry about getting fined every single week because of these tests. Do you see how force works, how coercion works, how authoritarianism works? Now, my respect to these businesses that are in protest, Daily Wire, Turning Point USA. I mean, wow, conservative organizations, The Blaze, standing up and saying, we're not playing this game. And they're going to file lawsuits. And to the Republicans who are fighting back, at the very least, we have that, no matter how feckless Republicans tend to be. They go on to say, the governors of Arizona, Montana, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Texas vowed to fight the mandate. And the Republican National Committee said it would file a lawsuit against the Biden admin. During a visit with the First Lady, Jill Biden, to Brookland Middle School in Washington, the president was asked what his message was to Republicans who decry the vaccine mandates as federal overreach and a plan to challenge them. Have at it, he said. The plan, which Biden announced Thursday, is part of a new 6-part strategy expected to affect about 100 million workers in the country. Many of us are frustrated with the nearly 80 million Americans who are still not vaccinated. Why? He says this is not about freedom and from personal choice. It's about protecting yourself and those around you. If I choose to walk into the woods, that is my business. I could get poison ivy. I could get bitten by a snake. My business, not yours. Biden said, we're going to protect the vaccinated workers from the unvaccinated. And I'm like, isn't the vaccine doing that? Yeah. Now we have the direct quotes here. We will get them out of the way. Talk about despotic. And now, booster shots, my friends, are on the menu. Joe Biden tweeted, my first responsibility is to protect the American people and make sure we have vaccines for every American, including enough boosters. As soon as they're authorized, those eligible will be able to get a free booster right away in tens of thousands of sites across the country. Do you think that the vaccine mandate will just stop? When they say fully vaccinated, they didn't say 2 shots. They said fully vaccinated. Well, right now, fully vaccinated means 2 shots. But what about when it means boosters? Yes, then you will be going out and getting boosters every 5 to 8 months. Bill Maher came out and said, not going to happen. He said, I took one for the team and got vaccinated. Now you're saying boosters? No. And how many others will say no? I'll tell you something fun. We got something fun for you. Dave Rubin, he tweeted, reminder, Twitter banned me for saying they want a federal vaccine mandate back in July. Dave Rubin was temporarily suspended on Twitter. Semantics on the ban thing. He tweeted, on July 29th, they want a federal vaccine mandate for vaccines, which are clearly not working as promised just weeks ago. People are getting and transmitting COVID despite vax. Plus now they're prepping us for booster shots. A sane society would take a pause. We do not live in a sane society. Talk about a real conundrum with social media. Dave Rubin's tweet was actually citing several stories that had already come out. Several stories that are now further being backed up by ongoing research. They just enacted a federal vaccine mandate. They do want booster shots, and it is being reported. New CDC studies show waning vaccine effectiveness against hospitalization in elderly. It's only a matter of time before YouTube starts shutting down these channels, but Politico's reporting it. What should I do? Not report? Not talk about what Politico is saying? That's how it works. But we'll see. So Dave Rubin was right. Politico says, COVID-19 vaccines continue to work well at preventing severe disease for the vast majority of Americans, but they are becoming less effective at blocking infection. According to a series of studies, the CDC had released Friday. 2 of the analyses suggested that as the Delta variant spread this summer, the shots became less effective at keeping people 75 and older out of the hospital. Breakthrough infections are still rare, and unvaccinated people still face significantly higher risks of illness and death from the virus. They were about 4 to 5 times more likely to become infected and more than 10 times more likely to need hospitalization or die from COVID than were fully vaccinated people. But the 3 new studies add to recent evidence that vaccines' protection against infection ebbs over time, which is the case for booster shots. Get it? Their release comes as the Biden admin is grappling with how to blunt the surge of cases of the highly contagious Delta variant. In a speech on Thursday, Biden has made the strongest push yet to get Americans vaccinated against the virus. The exact details of the booster plan are still, including distribution of boosters, they say the exact details of the booster plan are still hazy, in part because the administration was waiting for more data from the CDC on vaccines' effectiveness over time, the rate of breakthrough infections, and how any changes in those variables were affecting hospitalization rates, according to two senior administration officials who were familiar with the matter. CDC began last month to release the results of targeted vaccine effectiveness studies, showing protection against infection beginning to wane in residents of New York and LA, and among frontline healthcare workers. But the agency has taken weeks to complete one of its largest and most comprehensive analyses of breakthrough infections, based on data from 13 jurisdictions with the ability to match immunization records with COVID-19 lab reports. That is to say, the CDC has said effectiveness is going down. The solution? Right now, it appears that booster shots will be the solution, in which case Dave Rubin was right and was suspended on Twitter for being right. You see the problem with censorship here? And to throw it back to the vaccine mandates, how many people have said, so what, just get vaccinated? Bro, just get vaccinated? By all means, if your doctor advises it, I think you should take it from your doctor. I agree with Ben Shapiro. The vaccines seem to be a really, really great thing. But now we're getting data on a loss of efficacy, in which case boosters will be required, it seems. And what we will likely end up seeing is that fully vaccinated will mean up-to-date vaccination. You notice the CDC card has 4 slots, right? They say one of the 3 studies released Friday compared the relative risk of infection, hospitalization, and death between people who are fully vaccinated and those who are not across different age groups. The CDC looked at 600,000 people infected with COVID-19 from April through mid-July. It found that overall vaccine effectiveness against severe COVID disease remains high. Incident rate ratios for hospitalization and death changed relatively little after the Delta variant became the most dominant strain of the virus in the U.S., the study showed. But the vaccine's ability to prevent any infection, including mild disease, decreased from 91% to 78% after the Delta variant took over this summer. Between April 4th and June 19th, before Delta's rise, fully vaccinated people accounted for 5% of cases, 7% of hospitalizations, and 8% of deaths. Those figures roughly doubled between June 20th and July 17th as the variant spread. Fully vaccinated individuals accounted for 18% of cases, 14% of hospitalizations, and 16% of deaths. Something doesn't add up. Something is wrong. And perhaps, my friends, it is the variants. Perhaps this is a virus that is mutating, and we are silly for thinking we can control every aspect of it. Maybe we have to realize that we have a very serious danger to our lives. It's not like airborne Ebola or anything, but it's serious. Listen to stories from people who caught this stuff telling you when they can't breathe. I take it seriously. But I think we're going to have to learn to just maybe, when we're sick, wear masks like they do in Asia. I think that's a smart thing to do. Make sure you're not coughing and sneezing. Make sure you're washing your hands more often, being healthy, get exercise, stop smoking, stop eating trash food. I think it's time for people to take personal responsibility. More than 80% of Americans 16 and older have some immunity to coronavirus, blood survey finds. From CNN, as reported specifically by CBS 58, more than 80% of Americans 16 and older have some level of immunity against the coronavirus. The survey was led by the CDC. It also indicates that about twice as many people have been infected with the virus as have been officially counted. More than 39 million Americans have been diagnosed with COVID since the pandemic started in 2020. They go on to say the team, led by CDC's Dr. Jefferson Jones, set out to determine how close the U.S. might be to some kind of herd immunity, although they do not claim to have any kind of handle on that yet. They worked with 17 blood collection organizations working in all 50 states plus Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico to test blood covering 74% of the population. In the end, they tested about 1.4 million samples. That is massive. So there's bad news here. How is it that 80% have some level of immunity, yet we're still seeing a surge in cases? I think it's simple. I think COVID has mutated into numerous variants. You've got the Delta variant now, Epsilon, Lambda, and Mu. Prominence of Mu is, Fauci saying it's not prominent in the U.S. Okay. But it's not surprising. It's a novel virus. It means it's new. People have limited immunity to it or none. But over the past year now, 80% of people have some level of immunity. It's going to keep changing, and we need to accept that we have risks in the real world. That means we may lose some people. It's a scary thought. I don't want anyone to die. But think about the destruction of the economy, the destruction of people's lives, the depression, anxiety, how unhealthy people are becoming. Obesity is increasing in children. We need to recognize life comes with risks. And mandates aren't the answer. Going to your doctor and talking about what you can do is the right answer. You know why? I'm sure your doctor would say things like stop smoking, eat healthier, exercise more often. I'm sure many will recommend the vaccine. I'm sure many will recommend other treatments. Just make sure you trust your doctor is smart enough to give you the good advice. It's all about trust. Joe Biden is destroying that trust. He's making it actively worse. By coming out and forcing people, it's only going to make things worse. Now, we need people to feel like they got someone in their corner, someone they can trust. And the way things are going right now, nobody is feeling like they can trust what's happening with the federal government. It's making people distrust their own medical professionals. It's the craziest thing to me. You may have heard me say, I'll do this. A lot of people who watch every one of my episodes, you hear me repeat myself. It's because not everyone watches every single video. And if I leave out context, then people will say, I don't understand. So I can't assume everybody just watched every video. I have to treat each and every video independently. And that means on the audio podcast where it's condensed, you might hear me repeat myself in different segments. Sorry, it's just the way things go, right? It's just, I do my best. And that being said, there are a lot of people who are hearing these things from Joe Biden, feeling distrustful, and then outright saying, you know what, now I'm not going anywhere near it because you try to force me to do it. I think Ben Shapiro has one of the better approaches. Personally, I think I have one of the better approaches. I trust you to make the right decisions. I trust that when you're presented with the information from an honest perspective, you will make the choice that makes sense for you. That is to say, there are many people with no risk factors. They're conservative, Trump supporters, who have come on my show and said, I talked to my doctor and they said, COVID is a bigger risk to you than anything else. You should get the vaccine. And they did. And there were also people who said, my wife was pregnant. The doctor said, I don't think you should get it. Whether the CDC or the FDA makes a recommendation, for the mother's, iron levels and hormones and whatever, the doctor gave that advice. Some people have gone to their doctors and gotten therapeutic treatments as prescribed. I'm surprised to find so many people saying they don't trust doctors in general. Joe Rogan seems to have a good doctor, I guess. If you like Joe Rogan and you're happy with what he did, talk to his doctor. Just don't make the assumption that people on the internet or TV are going to be able to give you medical advice, because then we're going to see adverse events. I genuinely believe we would have a reduction in VAERS if people went to their doctors first. We would see more people vaccinated if Joe Biden wasn't acting like a cruel despot. One of my concerns is that when you hear these stories of people pulling into parking lots without talking to their doctors and just saying, yeah, whatever, I'll take a shot. It's like, did you look at the CDC website? Did you talk to your doctor about what makes sense based on your medical conditions? Because I know there's a lot of people who are healthy and young, and they're like, might as well get it. There's limited risks. Okay, fine. But what if you have an allergy? What if you have an allergy you didn't know about? On the CDC website, they actually say that after receiving the vaccine, there should be like a wait period where the doctor can observe you to make sure you don't succumb to anaphylaxis if you have that in your history. So for people to pull in with their cars and go through this, I think it's irresponsible. I think at the very least, park your car and go ask and say, can I go through my history and make sure we're going to be okay on this one? I think we see the vaccine adverse event reporting system lighting up. Not every case in there is legit. It's self-reporting, but I don't think people are just making things up and lying. Some people maybe, but not the majority. I think some of these cases could have been resolved if someone went to their doctor and the doctor says, I think you should get vaccinated. But let's go through your medical history. And someone could be like, I've had a negative reaction to glycol once. And the doctor might be like, all right, we're going to recommend against this because of that. Some people have gotten a single shot, had an allergic reaction or an adverse reaction. The doctor says, all right, we're not going to move forward. And those will get registered. But think about all of the people who aren't fully vaccinated because their doctor said so. The mandates don't work. The despotism doesn't work. In the end, what do we need to see? I hope the GOP stands firm. I live in one of these states. I live in West Virginia. Good for West Virginia and their AG to stand up to this. It makes me glad that I moved here. And those people that stand up for freedom, you get my vote. I should have the right to choose for myself. If you are concerned about unvaccinated people, no one is forcing you to live in these places. You know, Geraldo is like, what about my family? And Howard Stern, well, what about my right to freedom to live? That's called positive rights. We believe in negative rights, meaning no one can harm you directly. But if you can't force someone else to do something, sorry, that's positive. No, you can't force something to be created or do something. But I can tell you this, if you're upset, by all means move. Move to an area where they have the vaccines. Howard Stern, if you're so upset about this, my assumption was that you were in New York. Or maybe he's in LA. I don't know. Go to New York. Go to LA. Go where they have the vaccine mandates. And you can leave the red states alone. Mandating at the federal level, stupid. It's going to make everything worse. But I'll leave it there. There is no Timcast IRL show tonight because of personal issues, family stuff. So we got staff members who are taking important, much earned vacation time. So we'll see you all over at the Cast Castle. Go to youtube.com/castcastle. Enjoy the vlog. And we'll be back on this show Monday, along with Timcast IRL at 8 p.m. Make sure you go to timcast.com, be a member. There'll be content popping up all over the place. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all then.